Thank you very much for that wonderful talk. Um, it was great, these sort of profound Buddhist teachings and then this real life event. And yeah, these profound Buddhist teachings, they're not so profound. They're actually very practical and very real. So thank you very much for your wonderful talk. I do want to say something when you said Buddhism cannot save you, and that's correct. But the reason Buddhism cannot save you is because there's nothing to be saved. And whatever saved means, you already have it. So it's very interesting. Buddhism cannot save you because already you have it. So how do you need to be saved? So I just wanted to say that. And I believe somebody sent me an email with a question, and if that person would like to unmute themselves and ask the question, that would be really great.
Good morning, Judy.
Uh,
I sent you the email.
right.
I was just asking, I started reading that book that you suggested to me. I haven't finished it. But in the first half, pretty much every mention of practice is breathing, just focusing on your breathing. Is that the primary meditation that you guys teach?
Okay, so this was Zen Mind Beginner's Mind?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's Soto Zen. So there are basically two branches of Zen. There's Kaodong, which in Japan is known as Soto, and that's the name we know of it in this country. And then there's also the Lin Chi schools, and we are a Lin Chi school. That comes from the great Zen master Lin Chi. So our school is the Quantum School of Zen, which is descended from the Korean Shogye, and Korean Shogye is descended originally from Lin Chi's teaching. So these two schools are very different. So what Soto does is it teaches something called shikantaza, which is a technique in meditation where you don't really focus on the breath. You sort of use the breath in a certain way, and it's called choiceless awareness. Sometimes it's described that way in English. And I don't really know very much about that practice because I've never done it, I've never been taught it. What we do, being a Lin Chi school, we tend to have very simple, uncomplicated practices with no cognitive element. And the most common introductory practice in Lin Chi schools is to breathe. You're not really controlling your breath. You're breathing naturally, but your out breath is naturally twice as long as your in breath, and you're doing the style of breathing where when you pull in your stomach, your breath comes out, and when you push out your stomach, your breath comes in. And so you're doing that, and then I do it on each out breath. Other people, there are variations, but on the first out breath, you would go 1, and the second out breath, you would go 2, and you would do that all the way to 10, and then you start again at 1. So that's a very simple practice. It has no cognition attached to it, but it does have this simple task. And Shikantaza doesn't have tasks, but all Lin Chi schools have some kind of task in their practice, and the reason is to give you something very concrete to bring your mind back to when it wanders. So you bring your mind back to your counting. You don't have to start counting all over again every time your mind wanders, because your mind will wander 1,000 times, but you just bring your mind back. You just bring your mind back to wherever your counting was. You just keep bringing your mind back. So that's a very simple practice that we use. We also, when people are familiar with our chants, we can do fast mantra. We did this Kwanseum Bosal chant in the beginning for people who are in some kind of difficulty, and Kwanseum Bosal is the bodhisattva of compassion. So just over and over again, Kwanseum Bosal, Kwanseum Bosal, Kwanseum Bosal, really, really fast. My teacher, Zen Master Sungsan, he described it as a washing machine on spin cycle. You know, sort of Just like the water goes out of the clothes when it's on spin cycle, so your thoughts go out of your head, right? So just really fast, faster than you can sub vocalize it, so much faster than I can vocalize it. Just quantum, quantum, or what, other mantras are possible too. So that's another practice. We have a great question, which I don't recommend if you're a beginner because people tend to be caught in cognition. Just looking at the question, what am I? What am I? Again, I do it on the out breath. Some people do it on the in breath. Where you can go, what am I? And then very strongly on the in breath and very strongly in the out breath, don't know. But those practices, if you haven't been practicing for a while, you tend to get caught up in what am I? Oh, let's see, I'm a retired mathematician. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm married to Stan Lombardo. I have a son named Ben. Right? You get into that kind of stuff. I'm a really nice person. I'm a really horrible person. I'm pretty, I'm ugly. I have long hair, I have short hair. The color of my skin is such as such. My ancestors came from there, there, there. People get caught up in that stuff. And it's not very helpful to get caught up in that stuff. So I couldn't do any of those kinds of practices till I've been practicing for 15 years. I'm kind of, slow on the uptake. Um, some people can do them within a few years, but I don't recommend the beginners do that because it's just too easy to get caught up in your thinking. And there are other practices too, but that's so the whole thing about Lin Chi schools, you have a very simple um, task to perform with your mind. It has no cognition involved in it at all, and it's something to bring your mind back to constantly. So those are the kinds of practices that we do. And thank you very much for asking. Does anyone have any other questions?
Judy,
Yeah.
could you speak about some of the other practices we do and the relationship of practice to life?
Oh, like bowing and chanting and stuff like that?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then how how we practice in life and
I
day
don't
to
know what
day.
you practice in life.
Well, you know what I mean.
Right. Okay, so we do these prostrations, which I'm not going to demonstrate because on Zoom it's like there's too much, like I have to move the camera away and stuff like that. But we have a video on our event on our schedule page that explains prostrations. Um, Actually, Ting, you're far away from the camera. Do you want to demonstrate a prostration for everybody? Because you're in a space where you can do it. So that's a prostration. And if you come to our Tuesday, Thursday morning practice or our Saturday morning practice at 6:30 in the morning, we do 108 of those. Um, so that's bowing practice, and then you experience a little tiny taste of chanting practice. Most of our chants are somewhat more complicated and quite a bit longer. And then we have walking meditation, which people think of as you're just relaxing your legs, but actually it's a practice. You know, when I turned 65, I decided I'd better do a 90-day solo retreat now before I got too old, and so I went and did it. And before in my solo retreats, I was able to do midnight practice, but then I was like, I'd do a 3 week or 4 week solo retreat, and but by then I was 65, and so midnight practice, I just couldn't stay awake. I'd sit there and I just, like that. And so the only practice I could do at midnight was to walk around my cabin, just chanting Kwanse Bosal over and over again. So walking, yeah, that's a practice, you know. And it's an interesting practice because in walking, it's like usually when you walk, you look at, oh, look at this, oh, look at that, like that. But walking meditation, you don't do that. That's the point. You don't let your mind get pulled this way and that way. You just keep, your vision is not straight ahead, it's slightly lowered. Vision is always, I didn't say anything about posture meditation. It's very important. You have your eyes lowered, your hands are in this mudra, around your tian tian, your 3 fingers below your belly button, your power spot. People who do martial arts know about that. Your legs are in a stable position, whether you're on a floor or in a chair, you're very stable. So posture is important in meditation. Your chin is tucked in, your back is straight, your little curve of your back is there. Anyway, so walking meditation and in bowing meditation, prostration. That's an amazing thing, because what happens is it's like it doesn't matter what your mind does, your body will take care of it. It's like you're rewiring your mind-body connection, and you're rewiring the way your brain and your nervous system work just effortlessly. You go down, and at the bottom, you're in this position of total surrender. And then you come up again, and then you go down, and you come up, and you go down, and you come up. And I always say this, we're primates, right? When you're at the bottom of prostration, that's telling the world, okay, you're the boss, I'm not going to challenge you. But then you come up again. So it's like total submission, and then you come up, and total submission, and then you come up, and something happens. It's like an absolutely magical thing. Something happens to you over time if you keep doing that. It just changes you, and you don't have to monitor your thinking, because it's such hard work that, you're not going to think very much. Well, I know some people who do. I can't, But anyway, so there's bowing, there's chanting, there's walking meditation. There's koan practice, where you have these interviews, and we ask you these koans. You may be familiar with them as koans. That's the Japanese phrase. So there's that. Let's see if I left anything else. Bowing, walking, sitting, chanting, koan practice. I think that's it. And then Steve asked this very important question: how do you practice in your life? So if we try to practice in our life, we can't. It's more that practice changes us, and then the way we live our life changes. And it changes us by opening us up, opening our mind, opening our heart, strengthening our center, and becoming more clear. And you can't force it. You can't make it happen. You just practice, and it happens, as my teacher used to say, by natural process. As an old lady, when I retired, I took up piano again. I'd been very serious when I was a kid and a young adult, and then life took me away from it. And, Stan, my husband, can tell you, that he'll hear me curse and say, oh my God, that was no good. And I'll just do it over and over and over and over and go practice. And then suddenly it comes. Suddenly it's there. I'm playing music instead of just hitting the keys. And Zen practice is like that. You practice, you sit, you bow, you chant. Maybe you do walking meditation. And I should say, our walking meditation is not the overly conscious one where you move your foot very consciously. We simply walk. And usually we keep whatever practice, like our counting breaths or fast mantra, whatever other practice we're doing, going when we do walking meditation. You just keep doing these practices. And then one day something happens, and it's like you're reacting differently. You suddenly realize, oh, I don't have to be that way. I can be another way. So it's just like a natural thing that happens. So your practice just imbues your life, and you change. And your life changes. And the people around you, their life also changes because you've changed. You know, it's the old thing about, Al-Anon, the 12-step program for people who live with people who need 12-step programs, who have to deal with people, family members or something. And in Al-Anon, the first thing you learn is you can't change this other person. You can only change yourself. But when you change yourself, this other person will often change. Maybe not in the way you want them to change, but they will change because they're reacting to something that's different in their environment, namely you. So that's how practice sort of imbues your life. But there's certain techniques that you learn in practice that you can consciously use. You can consciously look at things and instead of assuming you know what they are, ask yourself, what is this really? You open your mind. What is this? What am I dealing with? So instead of being reactive and doing the same old things, you can sort of step back a little and say, what is this? And then that already changes the situation. You can become more and more aware that you really don't know anything. So you're ready to push it out there and whatever it is you're about to say or do, and then you get this moment of, wait a minute, I don't really know. And one thing that I find very helpful is to ask myself in the heat of the moment, what is the substance of this thought? What is the substance of this feeling? Substance is a sense of like, is it a liquid or gas? Is it solid? Is it, what color is it? And that is sort of very almost physical sense, although we're not describing things that are physical. Like, what is the substance of this thought? You have some kind of obsessive thinking over and over and over. How am I going to deal with this? What am I going to do? This is blah, 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 like that. And suddenly you can look and say, what is the substance of this? So these sort of habits of mind that we learn in practice, these come into our life. But it's not like a conscious thing, like you walk around and, I am doing Zen right now in the way that I am talking to my coworker, in the way that I am putting my card in the slot of the bank machine and the ATM. No, that's not how it goes. It's just a natural thing that happens. And thank you very much for asking that question, Steve. It's a great question. Oh my God, I've gone over time. I can't ask for questions, more questions. I've gone over time. Okay, so let's see, announcements. We are moving into the